Welcome to Unraveling the Pattern. I'm Lauren. I unravel all kinds of details related to the Wheel of Time for new fans of the TV show and for longtime fans of the books. My channel's been called the prime rib of Wheel of Time content by Daniel Green.
Not to brag.
If you like this video, then remember to like this video. If you're new to my channel, please check out my other content and remember to subscribe and turn on notifications. Enough about me, we've got a trailer to unravel. Spoiler warning, this video contains heavy story spoilers for the prequel novel and the first 4 Wheel of Time books, as well as many spoilers related to season 1 of the TV show. I'll also be discussing some vague plot details from later books and details from many of the past teaser trailers and promotional content from Amazon Prime. So if you haven't read the entire Wheel of Time series or want to remain completely spoiler-free, this video is not for you. You've been warned. After years of waiting and months of incredible teasers and breadcrumbs, we finally got an official full trailer for the upcoming Wheel of Time TV show, which will be streaming exclusively on Amazon Prime on November 19th. This trailer is filled with all kinds of amazing details and Easter eggs. On top of that, Rafe Judkins, the showrunner, did an official trailer breakdown video that was released on IGN. So there's lots to discuss. Let's get into it. Of all the teasers we've received so far, this one was definitely my favorite. Maybe it's because I haven't been getting much sleep while trying to keep up with all of this new Wheel of Time content, but the emotional beats and character moments in this trailer actually made me tear up. When Perrin asks Egwene if she thinks they'll ever go back, this scene just gave me chills. And we finally got to hear Maureen say that classic line, "The wheel weaves as the wheel wills." What a trailer. The trailer contains 106 shots. If we remove the title screen in the middle and the 2 title screens at the end, that leaves us with 103 shots to analyze and to speculate about. This trailer also has about 35 lines of dialogue, which is way more than what we've heard or seen before. Right in the first shot, we get this beautiful look of Moraine wearing white. The surrounding lighting almost has a feeling of a dream or a flashback, or perhaps an accepted or Aes Sedai test. We hear a woman, probably Swan, saying, "Swear your oath, Moraine Sedai." Now, don't let this dialogue fool you. Throughout the trailer, there are many lines of dialogue that don't necessarily align with the footage that we're seeing. More on this in a second. Some people think that Moraine looks younger here, and this is a flashback to a moment from New Spring, when she and Swan become Aes Sedai. I agree. This is likely part of the same sequence where they'll witness Gitara Moroso from 20 years earlier, having her vision of the dragon's birth. Skipping ahead to another shot from the teaser where Moraine is again shown wearing white, you can tell by the collars that she's not wearing the same dress, and her hair is different. We then cut to a scene that's clearly in the present with Moraine, Alana, and Leandrin in the hall of the tower. Look at the 7 Aja colors on the floor. Notice the dress that Moraine is wearing and her hair here. We then hear dialogue from Moraine repeating most, but not all of the 3 oaths, and we're shown these interesting shots of what appears to be Swan's and Moraine's hands holding and using the oath rod. I love the intricate design of the oath rod and the way the one power flows through it. Notice their fingers just barely touch. Moraine says,
"I swear to speak no word that is not true, to make no weapon with which one person may kill another, and never to use the one power as a weapon."
Rafe clarified in his trailer breakdown video on IGN that the 3rd oath does include more than what is said here. I'm guessing this dialogue actually comes from the flashback scene, but I'm sure we'll hear the full oath in that scene. In a trailer like this, every millisecond counts, and they probably excluded the end bit to keep things moving along. You can tell that Moraine's hair and dress and Swan's dress match the present day shots. So what gives? Why does it look like Moraine and Swan are using the oath rod 20 years after they became Aes Sedai? Rafe said in his IGN breakdown that the oath rod is, quote, "something that people may not be expecting to see in the first season, but I think they'll like how we're using it." This implies to me that they're choosing to use the oath rod a bit differently from how it's used in the books. Also, I want to reiterate that Swan says at the start, "Swear your oath," and not oaths, and she calls Moraine Moraine Sedai. I'm guessing they wouldn't officially call her Moraine Sedai in the flashback scenes until after she has already sworn her oaths and received the shawl. I refuse to believe that Swan was the Amyrlin 20 years earlier when Moraine was just becoming an Aes Sedai. I think this is intentionally misleading. So why do you think we're seeing Moraine swear an oath in the present timeline? Do you think Moraine will be required to swear a new oath to Swan? Or could they be using this as a sort of symbolic ceremony before Moraine testifies? Sort of like how some people swear on a Bible before giving their testimony in a trial. Even though we already know that the 3 oaths are binding, I could see the Aes Sedai re-swearing their oath to tell no word that is not true like this in the hall as a ceremony or tradition when put on trial. It also sets up some nice foreshadowing foreshadowing for later, when Aes Sedai will all re-swear their oaths in the hall in front of the Amyrlin during the Great Purge. Moving on, we see Moraine and Liandrin and Alanna in what appears to be the cave where Logan is shown in a cage in other scenes. Notice how these two here are sitting down, similar to how we see these two sitting in the original teaser trailer. We've seen an example of a shield being woven like this before in the Logan teaser from a while back, although in this shot it looks like only Moraine's shield is visible. This lends more credence to my theory that Alanna might be passing the shield to Moraine in this shot from the Logan teaser, or that the shield is only visible like this as it's woven, and then it dissipates or is no longer visual as a weave once it settles into the person being shielded. I love how Logan appears to be calm here. This next shot seems like it could be part of the same sequence as before, but this is very likely a later scene. Notice that the two women to Moraine's sides are not sitting anymore, and in the brightened shot, a broken chair is visible here. Also, this is not Alanna in the back. Actually, to my surprise, this is Kareen standing up, which means that I and many of us were wrong when we assumed that Kareen would be killed in this scene, when Logan is shown breaking out of the shield in the teaser trailer. Clearly, Logan is not shielded at this point, because he has not only broken free, but we get a later shot of him melting the bars of the cage. I mentioned that this shot in one of the character promo teasers of Logan could be showing the remains or ashes of the burning cage, and it looks like I was right. But notice that Logan is standing here as the cage burns, and as the ashes float up. Then look at these shots from the teaser trailer. Notice Lan in the background, and no Liandrin that we can see. Logan is now kneeling or crouching down, and it looks to me like Kareen is dead or unconscious on the ground here, as Stepan attacks Logan. Not sure what to make of this, but perhaps there will be two different scenes with Logan attempting to break out and failing in the first attempt, but still knocking Kareen down, and then he'll fully succeed and break out in the second attempt, possibly killing Kareen in the process. Or perhaps Kareen will die shortly after this scene, before she has a chance to be healed. Anyway, I once again think this is some smoke and mirrors. One thing's for sure, Kareen is not present in any of the scenes in the White Tower. We then get this line of dialogue from Stepan, who plays Kareen's warder. He says,
"Do you know what Aes Sedai means in the old tongue? Servants of all. It is they who serve the world."
I think he's probably speaking to Nynaeve in this scene, but what if he's talking to Egwene and Perrin? I'm still in favor of the Stepan equals Elias theory, and I want to see Elias talking about wolves to Perrin and Egwene at a campfire. Or maybe that's just wishful thinking. We then get successive shots of Moraine, Liandrin, and Alanna facing the Amyrlin seat in the Hall of the Tower, and a repeat shot or two from the teaser trailer of the hall and Swan looking fierce. Eagle-eyed Twitter user, The Wheel Memes, noticed that this shot might be reversed. Look at how some of the women sort of awkwardly gather their skirts as they stand. This is more often how someone would sit. I'm guessing this empty seat here with the Green Sisters belongs to Kareen. This is our first really good close-up look at Moraine's Kisera. I love how it looks. Her face, on the other hand, looks like she knows she's about to get the brunt of the Amyrlin's wrath. Then we see this shot of Moraine and we hear her voice saying,
I didn't choose this path, but I will follow it.
It's hard to be sure, but her dress and hair don't seem to match the previous shot when she's in the Hall of the Tower. Also, notice how she moves her finger here, almost like she's just getting used to wearing her ring. I don't know, this is very likely part of the same present timeline, but what if this is a shot of her just after becoming an Aes Sedai, shortly after hearing the foretelling of the dragon's birth? This could be anywhere, but this and a few other shots we've seen give me Gandalf vibes. I love this next little conversation between Lan and Moraine, where Lan simply asks, "Where next?" as if he's not at all sick and tired of looking everywhere for the Dragon Reborn for the past 20 years. He's completely loyal to Moraine and always follows her lead. Moraine looks tired but determined as she says,
The two rivers. The old blood runs deep in those mountains.
My guess is that the audience's first introduction to Moraine and Lan won't be this scene, but it will actually be the scene that was released previously as a promotional clip when they arrived to the Winespring Inn. I put a ton of time breaking down that clip shot by shot. If you missed my video about it, be sure to check it out. In that video, I think I proved that the clip they provided to us was heavily edited for promotional purposes, and we'll likely get a slightly longer or different scene from what's in that clip. But I do think that will be the first time we see Lan and Moraine in the show, and not this scene. So that means this exchange between them will more likely be a flashback or something we see later as we're introduced more to each of their characters throughout the first season. This is likely a shot of the women's circle heading towards the cliff and river where Egwene will be going through her initiation ceremony. I'm pretty sure this is Nynaeve leading the group, and I think this is Egwene in the lighter dress just behind her. This next shot proves to me that the water paint scene will probably happen first, and then we'll get the cliff jumping sequence that we saw in the teaser trailer. I think they're both probably part of the same ceremony on the same day, but I think this scene comes first. You can see see Egwene looking around, her hair unbraided, and then there's this great detail that was pointed out by Rebecca from reading the pattern. The way Egwene swirls her hands and the light of the cave entrance reflects in the water gives a subtle Flame of Tarvalon look here. In the next shot, Nynaeve is looking down at Egwene with a proud smile. In the behind the scenes clip, you see 7 women of the circle holding bottles, with Nynaeve standing here. I'm guessing based on the paint streaks in this shot from the original teaser trailer that they'll throw the paint into the water and Egwene will rise up out of it, sort of like a symbolic baptism or rebirth. I like the detail that the yellow paint is probably coming from Nynaeve based on where she's standing and where it comes from in this shot. There's another shot that's featured in the Moiraine's quest teaser that shows the women of the circle making their way down to the caves or cavern where I presume this pool is located. Notice the Flame of Tarvalon symbol here. The reason I think this paint scene comes first is because Egwene's hair is unbraided in these shots, and as we've already established in other videos, you can see what appear to be stains of color on Egwene's dress in the teaser trailer cliff scenes. Some people at London Comic-Con got to see more of this cliff sequence, and they mentioned that there are many women from the circle just out of view over here, watching it all happen. This clip probably takes place inside of a building in Shatter Logoth. These next 2 shots show our boys chatting, and Rand has the same awesome wool sweater that he's wearing in another scene from the teaser trailer. I can't tell if Matt just said something funny or serious, or is about to. These shots are also shown just after we hear Moraine say, "Let's hope it's prepared them for what's coming." I like how innocent and happy these characters look here. Little do they know, all of that's about to change. We get another version of the horse arriving on the dark and stormy night, and a very quick flash of a Murdral on his masked horse. I think this is probably Lan or Moraine in this rainy shot. I have lots of evidence to prove that in my Winespring Inn breakdown video. Then we hear Moraine say,
"The Dark One is waking."
and we get this cool shot of the group arriving at Shatter Logoth through a rift in the outer wall. You can see the forest behind them here, which matches this image that was revealed on the interactive Amazon Prime Wheel of Time page. I've made 2 videos about that, go and check them out. It's hard to see in the trailer, but in the image from the site you can see that Moraine is being carried by Perrin. Could her head be bouncing around like this? It's likely that Moraine will be injured or too tired to do much of anything during the Shatter Logoth scenes. This aligns well with the books. There's a quick flash later in the trailer of Lan holding Moraine's body. My guess is that this scene will take place after the group is separated in Shatter Logoth. More on that in a bit. Moraine's dialogue continues.
But there will be one who can stand against him. And it's one of the 5 of you.
We first see a shot of Egwene and Rand, and it very much looks to me like they're leaving the 2 rivers here. Then we see this shot of Perrin. It's hard to tell, but the set behind him doesn't appear in any of the other shots that we've seen. He's also wearing a red shirt. I think this is probably a scene from Faldarra later in the season. Then we get one of the best shots in the trailer, Nynaeve literally tugging and then flicking her braid back. We got another glimpse of this in the behind the scenes teaser, and it's absolutely awesome. I'll return to this in a bit. We get a very quick glimpse of Matt drawing the Shatter Logoth dagger. I have a lot more to say about this scene as well, but I'll get to it. And then this shot of Rand doing target practice in Faldarra Keep. Yes, due to some leaked online images from a long time ago, we know this is a scene from Faldarra and that Rand is shooting targets and Trollic dummies. I wanted to point out how they very quickly cut to Moraine's face saying, "And it's one of the 5 of you." If you look very closely, she's not saying 5, she's saying 4. They've clearly dubbed Rosamund Pike's voice for the trailer to make it sound like she's saying 5 of you, but she's not. In this later shot, you can only see 4 of the Emmons Fielders. This is clearly misdirection for the wider audience. That being said, I love the theory that Daniel Lewin could be accompanying them early on. For those who might not know, Daniel Lewin was originally supposed to be a 4th young man who was going to leave Emmons Field with the rest of the group in early drafts of The Eye of the World. He was edited out after Robert Jordan realized that his character was not significant to the plot. You can actually see an extra member of the group in both of the illustrated book covers for The Eye of the World. Anyway, if they did bring another potential candidate along and then killed him off early, it could really raise the stakes for other characters and could keep the audience on their toes. But I actually don't believe this theory.
But it could be fun though.
I'm pretty sure they just edited or dubbed the audio to say 5 in the trailer. Now, this is still different from the books, as it does seem that at least for a while, Egwene will be included as one of the possible suspects for the Dragon Reborn. But don't let this fool you. Moraine knows that the dragon is one of the boys. She says, "There will be one who can stand against him, and it's one of the 5 of you." This is typical Aes Sedai speak. She never says, "It could be you, Egwene." I'm sure this is just to keep the mystery alive for the audience. I think Moraine knows that Egwene has to come along because because of her potential with the one power, but also because she'll need to be there to help Rand. I think Rand would likely not come along if Egwene were staying behind, and Moraine understands that. I'll go back to the shots I missed in a second, but we literally see only the 4 Emmons Fielders without Nynaeve in this next scene, and then we cut back to the scene in Emmons Field, and we get to hear Matt saying, "Have you fully lost your mind?" I love this little line from Matt. It fits his character very well. If Loyal were here to witness this, he'd be shushing Matt and warning him about bees or hornets and upsetting an Aes Sedai. We then see a repeat of this scene, which we've been shown before in the Moraine's quest teaser, but this shot of Rand is new. Do you think he's looking down on the 2 rivers for the last time here? Okay, let's rewind a bit to this shot. A commenter on another of my YouTube videos who goes by the name of Anaya proposed this awesome theory that I love so much about this shot. For context, let's quickly look at a few other shots from the trailer and other teasers. Notice here that Nynaeve is running from something. She appears to be all alone and scared. This particular shot gives me horror vibes, and I love it. Back to this in a second. Now look at this shot. This is a wider and clearer shot from the Shadowspawn teaser. I mistakenly assumed in my Shadowspawn teaser breakdown that these scenes took place in Emmons Field, and maybe this shot of the horse's hooves was on the bridge near the Winespring Inn. But many commenters were quick to correct me, and I realized that these clips from the teaser and this clip from the trailer are very likely shots of Shadowspawn right on the edge of the Terran River at Terran Ferry. Look at this rope here. This is very likely the ferry guideline rope that the ferryman, Hightower, uses to guide the ferry across the river. My guess is that Maureen and the group are just barely going to make it to the ferry and cast off just as the Trollics and Myrddraal arrive. This gives me Buckleberry Ferry vibes from the Fellowship of the Ring movie. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a Trollic cut this rope. Anyway, there were some unconfirmed rumors a long time ago that not only will Moraine sink the ferry after they're safely across like she does in the book, but the rumor says that she might also kill Master Hightower, the ferryman, in order to prevent him from recrossing and helping the Shadowspawn across. This means that at some point in the same day or the following day, Nynaeve will be making her way alone to Terran Ferry, but she'll likely be hiding from Trollics and Myrddraal all across the riverbank, and there won't be a ferry to help her cross. Could this be a shot of her possibly running away from Shadowspawn towards the river? Rafe Judkins commented on this braid flipping shot and said, "This is just after she's done something pretty incredible in the show, and it's a tug not only of strength, but also defiance." Anaya's theory is that this could be Nynaeve getting up out of the river after swimming across on her own with no ferry. I absolutely love this take, especially because Nynaeve's lesson to Egwene is to be strong, and then she pushes her into a river. Nynaeve's whole character at the start of the series is based around her constantly fighting against the currents around her in her lovable, stubborn way. I think in her determination and strength and defiance, as Rafe put it, Nynaeve will face the flow of the Terran River and the masses of Trollics, and she'll jump in and swim to the other side. This is that epic hero shot of her after she makes it out. The cave-like background is probably just some rocky bits like we see in these shots of other rivers in the teaser trailer. What do you think? I hope this is true because I love the idea of it. The next shot of Matt and the dagger is awesome, and I'm not ignoring it, but I'll address it later. Moving back here, look at the massive destruction that was caused here in the village. It sure feels like there were a lot more casualties in this Winter Night attack than what happens in the book. I'm also wondering, where are the other villagers? Where is Tam? I wonder too if Moraine will leave a bag of gold to the Alvirs to rebuild, similar to how she does this for the innkeeper in Barlone in the book. And I also love that Lan is the first to notice what's coming in the mountains, and then Egwene and Rand look next, almost as if they sense it too. Lan just says, "Moraine," and then she looks up at the mountains. Egwene says, "What are those?" Then this cool shot of the Trollic army and their torches barely visible in the mountains. Let's hope we get to see more of this in the Battle of the Two Rivers later in the show. Moraine says, "His army," and then we get this super fast shot of a bunch of Trollics charging down the slopes of the mountain. This again reminds me of the Fellowship of the Ring. I can't help but feel like they're intentionally making some of these visual comparisons. This shot goes by super fast, but check out how quickly this Trollic up front is moving. And look at this one, running on all fours. Could this be a Darkhound? Or is this just a beast-like Trollic that runs on all fours? I love the variety of the Trollics we've seen, and this shot is just amazing. I wonder how many of these are extras and stunt people versus CGI add-ins. It all blends seamlessly to me. Rafe mentioned this in his IGN breakdown video. They used a bunch of practical makeup and puppets and prosthetics, but then they subtly enhanced it as needed with visual effects and CGI. I think they did a phenomenal job, and I'm so glad this was the approach they chose to take. My guess is that they've also done this for the Ogier. This Trollic is terrifying and huge. Then we finally get to see more of the Althor farm attack. The door breaks open and this Trollic rushes through. This shot to me is the most CGI looking of all of the Trollic shots. Something about the quick movement and the fluid motion of the creature feels CGI to me, but I still love it. I love that you can see Tam's Blade Master and fatherly instincts kick in here as he pushes Rand away from the Trollic sword. We get a quick shot of Perrin asking, "What can we do?" More on this in a bit, but back to Tam and Rand. This shot of Blade Master Tam unsheathing his heron-marked sword is so cool. And this is by far my favorite Trollic shot we've seen. Many people think this is Narg, and I agree. He's so menacing and terrifying. Look at the blood dripping from his face. I wonder if he was just feeding on some of the Althor's sheep. Also, he does seem to have human-like blue eyes. In the next shot, we see the Trollic using his full strength to swing his massive sword, and Tam still manages to block it in the next shot. So cool. Look at how the Trollic pushes against its sword, pressuring Tam. According to some people who've already seen this scene, Tam will be injured at some point here. We then see Rand looking terrified, and then we see him shooting an arrow. This looks to be a bit out of order because you can clearly see Tam standing here, but I'm sure it's likely part of the same sequence. As we see Rand shooting the arrow, we hear Egwene say, "We protect the people we love." I can't get over the fact that we get to see Tam protecting his son, and we get to see Rand protecting his father. I think this takes place after the Shatter Logoth separation, but just before Nynaeve finds Lan in the forest. Still, I like how it goes along with Egwene's line about protecting the people we love. Egwene then finishes her line and says, "No matter the cost." Back to this shot of Perrin asking, "What can we do?" from earlier. Notice he's wearing the red shirt that we saw before in this shot. I think this scene and the scene with Egwene and Nynaeve here likely take place in Faldarra. This scene makes me think of the roundtable discussion the group has in Faldarra before they leave for the Eye of the World the following day. In the books, this is when Agomar tells Lan's backstory to the group. Do you think we'll get to hear some of Lan's story here, or will that be saved for a flashback or another time? We immediately get this awesome shot of Faldarra Keep. Rafe said in his breakdown that this is Tarwin's Gap in the background. That means that this is probably the Blight back here. Can't wait to see more of that. In this shot, it looks like Moraine and Lan are being guided by Shinarans with topknots to see Lord Agomar. You can see the Black Hawk of Shinar on their uniforms. Did you catch this guy's eye patch strap here? I'm 99.9% sure this is Uno. Does this mean one of these others could possibly be Masema? I love this shot of who is presumably Lord Agomar, looking out towards the Blight, always keeping watch. This is by far the most shocking sequence in the trailer for me. This is clearly an Aes Sedai of the Yellow Aja being burned at the stake. Look how Eamon Valda seems to revel in the violence. You can see blood on his hands and on this napkin, and you can see the pyre in the reflection on his goblet. It feels weirdly evil and ritualistic. I've never really thought of the White Cloaks as scary before, but in this, they are a terrifying group of zealots that actually feel like a real threat. It looks like the White Cloaks will be formidable villains, and I'm so here for it. And then this amazing shot of Eamon Valda adding the Yellow Sister's ring to his belt with other Aes Sedai rings, like a trophy. You can still see the blood on his hands. My guess is that he'll literally cut her finger off to get her ring, and that this scene will happen before the pyre is lit and he sits down to watch. It's hard to be sure, but I think this is another yellow ring, and this could be brown or green, and this one looks like it's gray. Anyway, one last thing about this. I've seen many people speculate about how a non-channeler White Cloak could capture and kill an Aes Sedai. Couldn't she just defend herself with the one power? I've heard theories that perhaps the White Cloaks use Forkroot Tea, which is used later in the series to subdue channelers and to temporarily disable them from being able to channel. But to me, it seems pretty obvious that the White Cloaks probably make use of abandoned steadings to do these rituals. I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of time and effort goes into planning ambushes and knocking out Aes Sedai and then dragging them into a steading to perform this burning of the Tarvalon witches. I also wouldn't be surprised if Egwene and Perrin have already been captured at this point and are forced to witness this witch burning. Anyway, during this sequence, Moraine says, "Our enemies are everywhere. They will leave no one standing." Then we get this curious scene of Lan showing extreme emotion while wearing what is presumably funeral white in the White Tower. Then we get this glimpse of Moraine, also in funeral white, almost subconsciously crying, like she can't help but hold back the emotions that she feels from her warder. I love this little moment, even though it does feel a bit out of character for Lan. Rafe mentions this in his breakdown as well. They're really trying to show the nature of the warder and Aes Sedai bond, and how each individual's emotions strongly affect the other. This here in the background is Alana, and some people have questioned whether or not this is Nynaeve, but it seems very clear to me that it is her. To me, the question is, what could have happened to cause such an emotional reaction in Lan and Moraine? I've heard theories that this could be a flashback to when Lan loses his friend Bukama in New Spring, or that this could be a reaction to losing Kareen Nagashi. But I think this other scene from the teaser trailer is Kareen's funeral. I'm guessing Kareen will already be dead by the time they arrive at the tower, as I've already discussed. I think this is possibly a scene that takes place after the Black Aja, led by Liandrin, reveal themselves at the White Tower and kill many Aes Sedai and warders in the process of running away. Could this be a funeral of many dead people in the tower? Rand says, "We've lost too many people already. I can't lose you." And then we get this shot of him arriving at Emmons Field the morning after the Winter Night attack. The implication is that he lost his father, but I don't think that's the case. This scene looks exactly how I imagined it in the book. I love Rand's puppy eyes as he talks to Egwene here and says, "I can't lose you." I'm pretty certain this takes place in Faldarra right around this scene when Rand is doing target practice earlier. There's a follow-up to this shot a few shots later, where Egwene says, "You won't." The emotion and love these two show for each other in these teasers and trailers is so good. It's going to be heartbreaking when they decide not to be together. Between these shots, we get a quick glimpse of a daytime shot where the White Cloaks are intimidating Perrin and Egwene. Rafe confirmed that this is Aram, the Tinker or one of the traveling people here. My guess is that we won't be seeing Elias in this season, and Perrin and Egwene will be taken by the White Cloaks just after they leave the Tinker camp. Perhaps Aram will actually be going with them, but the White Cloaks will knock him out and leave him for dead. Or maybe he's just escorting Egwene and Perrin away from the camp when this happens. Notice in this follow-up shot that Egwene seems to be wearing a Tinker coat or dress. I really love that Egwene is like a chameleon who takes on the clothing and some of the cultural influences of each group with whom she comes in contact. You can see the hanging person in the background here, which is also visible in this earlier shot in the trailer. This looks to me to be the same place where Matt sees the Aielman in a cage from the teaser trailer, but now Matt is revisiting it at night. At first, when I saw this person in the foreground with the knife, I immediately thought this was the female dark friend, Millie Skane, who tries to kill Rand and Matt in a barn in a small village in the first book. Her knife has some sort of poison or power that causes the wall of the barn to smoke when it's embedded there. But somebody on Twitter pointed out that the sleeves on this person clearly match Tom's sleeves, and we all know Tom Maryland loves to hide knives up his sleeves. My guess is that Matt will draw the dagger on Tom because he's clearly paranoid of everyone, and Tom will probably use his dagger to protect Matt and Perrin from a fade. There's a shot of this later, which I'll discuss when we get to it. Then we get some more shots of what looks like an awesome pig-faced Trollic attacking Egwene and Nynaeve during the Winternight attack. I like this little detail, where Egwene hits the Trollic in the back with this stick with all of her might, and it doesn't seem to do anything except maybe bend the stick a little. We hear Moraine's voice saying, "If we do not stop the Dark One now, the whole world will burn. I can't allow it." This pretty much sums up everything we need to know about Moraine. She'll literally do anything, including killing the Dragon Reborn if it means stopping the Dark One. Of course, we know that wouldn't work out, but you get the point. Many have already discussed this scene, where they think this is Loyal. I'll just say that I'm 100% certain that this is Loyal, and I'll leave it at that. I think the perspective is tricky, and he's likely larger than how he appears here. I do like in this shot that Moraine is approaching the Waygate first, and the others are sort of waiting in the background to see what will happen. I really hope we get to see a nervous Loyal during this scene. And then this awesome blink and you miss it shot of a fade flashing towards Tom inside of a small room. It almost looks like they removed some frames from the shot to make the fade look like it's moving faster than what's natural. Also, based on Tom's height, this fade is huge. I love that detail. Obviously, we're not seeing any sparks as the fade's blade strikes Tom's dagger. It's likely that either they'll add this later, or these aren't Tom's best knives. Anyway, I've added some blue sparks here just for fun. Then there's this shot of Nynaeve, which I already discussed, but it's possible this is her running through the forest towards Shatter Logoth. Maybe she's being chased by Trollics. I like to think this scene happens before she reaches Terran Ferry and jumps into the river. There's a very quick shot of these Trollics in what looks like a forge. You can just see somebody in the background here, though it's hard to make out who it is. Again, I love the scale of the Trollics compared to the humans. They're massive, just like how I've always imagined. I wonder why the Trollic is scraping its sword through these flames. Could it be flinging fire at somebody just off camera? Perhaps it's fighting Perrin in his forge. This next shot is actually a separate cut of sparks, and it's really hard to tell where this is and what's happening, but I hope we'll get to see some scenes from Perrin's forge. Then we get a crossfade to a wider shot of this awesome scene where the Trollics are gathering in Emond's Field, or possibly Terran Ferry. Just another example of awesome Trollic variety. I want to point out in this shot too, that there's more ash or possibly snow in this scene. We've seen several shots of rain in Emond's Field or the Two Rivers, but from what I can tell there's no rain on the night of the Winternight attack. My guess is that all of the rainy shots come from the night before. A new shot of Moraine gathering the flows of the One Power during the Winternight attack, and then this awesome clip of the flows literally turning into fire as they're woven into fireballs by Moraine. My guess is that this scene from the Moraine's quest teaser is a lead up to this moment. Notice how the flows seem to be pulled directly from the fire here, and then Moraine weaves them back into fire again here. I think for non-channelers, the only thing they would see would be the fire beginning to form here. Notice also in this next scene that the Winespring Inn is not yet ruined, and the tree doesn't look to be on fire just yet. My guess is that the lightning strike that's shown in the teaser trailer is what causes most of the damage. This Trollic with its feathers and beak looks so amazing. Aside from the wolf Trollic that might be Narg, I think this is my next favorite Trollic design. Look at all of the blood on its chest. Could this be the same one that was eating a villager in the previous teaser? I already discussed this shot and the way that Logan melts the cage and turns it to ash, but if you look closely you can also see what look to be dark strands of corrupted Sidene as it melts away. Somebody also suggested to me that this shot could be reversed and the cage is actually building around Logan, but I don't think that's the case because of the tendrils of black Sidene weaves that seem to be going into burning it away. Also, yes, Rafe did call it the corruption instead of the taint, which I think is probably a smart choice. We got another shot of Logan using the corrupted or tainted male half of the One Power as he stops a blade here. My guess is that this scene happens earlier on in Logan's storyline. The 3 stars on red are the symbol of Gildan. I'm guessing that this is one of the soldiers or the king of Gildan that's featured in this scene from the Logan teaser. However, this doesn't appear to be a wall in the background here. It actually looks like a landscape, so it doesn't exactly match these scenes from the Logan teaser. Perhaps this is just a random soldier that Logan is stopping before he breaks through the wall of the palace and attacks the king and his guards here. More on that in my Logan teaser breakdown. We've already discussed this shot in previous videos. I love seeing Alana and her 2 warders here. This very likely takes place during the Dragonsworn battle that's featured more in the teaser trailer. Another quick shot of Trollics charging in either Emond's Field or possibly Terran Ferry, and then this cool shot of Shinarans with these awesome crossbows. I'm pretty sure this is the actor who is rumored to play Lord Agilmar, and this is very likely Faldarra. These next 2 shots have probably caused the most speculation and discussion among the fans. We get a very quick glimpse of an Aiel warrior with bloodied spears and a buckler on their back, running through a snowy battle scene with what appears to be a large mountain in the background. It's hard to tell if this is a male or female from this shot. This is very likely a flashback or a prologue type scene of the Blood Snow, which took place near Dragonmount and Tar Valon at the Battle of the Shining Walls during the Aiel War, which takes place 20 years before the start of the main story. Check out this trebuchet in the background here. You can see actual blood in the snow. And then we get this awesome shot of an Aiel warrior pulling on the cape of this soldier. Notice that this Aiel warrior doesn't have spears or a buckler on their back. It's unclear if this is the same Aiel from the previous shot. It's also unclear if this is a male or female, but to me the body of this warrior seems a bit more feminine. Of course, many people noticed the 9 bees of Ilion on the soldier's breastplate here. This is very likely a high-ranking member of the Ilioner companions. Now, many have assumed that this is Tam, but I think this is actually Tam's superior officer. Twitter user nsleeds pointed out that this uniform does match the Ilioner companion's uniform, as it is described in the Wheel of Time companion. Based on the plumes on his helmet and the 4 gold or yellow braids on the sleeves of his green coat, this is probably the first captain of the companions, who was Tam's boss. Tam was the second captain, and according to the Wheel of Time companion, he would have likely been first captain if he had been born in Ilion instead of Andor. My guess is that this is something that Tam is witnessing, but that this isn't him. I personally like to think that this is Shail, Rand's true mother. I know this person doesn't necessarily look pregnant, but we do know that Shail was fierce and likely fought right up until she gave birth on the slopes of Dragonmount. I've also heard some people say that they thought this was Janduin, Rand's true father. But Janduin was likely in Kyrian, fighting against King Layman at this point, and he probably wasn't at the Battle of the Shining Walls. Still, this could definitely be him. I'm guessing they're intentionally leaving this person's face shrouded in mystery. Then a quick repeat of this shot from the Logan teaser, and this shot of Rand, who's likely doing target practice in Faldarra. This banner in the background matches the Faldarra banners we've seen in other teasers. But why do you think he looks so angry here? Do you think he just had a difficult conversation with Egwene? We've seen this shot before, but it looks like they've improved some of the VFX for this shot since it was shown in the teaser trailer. And then the title sequence with Maureen's classic line, "The wheel weaves as the wheel wills," followed by this final sequence of Perrin asking Egwene if she thinks they'll ever go back home, and she says no. I already mentioned that I love this scene and it gave me chills. Between these lines of dialogue, we get a rapid fire of just a few more shots. The Shadow Spawn, which I've already discussed, Matt likely in Emond's Field or Breen's Spring. Lan absolutely destroys something off screen here. It looks like he's pressing down with his right hand on his blade here. That's gotta hurt. Do you think this is Trollic blood, or could this be the first time we see a Murdral getting killed on screen? My guess is Trollic. This quick glance at another nasty looking Trollic, and then this awesome shot of Perrin swinging an axe. I'm so happy that we get to see him using an axe. Or could this be a hammer? I can't be sure. Another shot of Maureen using the One Power and almost dancing in the battle along with Lan. This awesome shot of the women of Emond's Field killing a Trollic with their pitchforks and knives. Somebody said they thought this woman was using a frying pan, but I think she's just using a kitchen knife or something. Sadly, I don't think the Luhans will be in the show. And then a repeat of this shot from the Moraine's quest teaser, where Rand blows out the candle. I like the flame and the void comparison here. Then the trailer ends with this last clip of Egwene looking sad, as she says that she doesn't think they'll ever return home. My guess is that this scene takes place after the group is separated, and Perrin and Egwene are on their own together. This could be at a campfire with just the two of them, or maybe at a Tinker camp. Thank you for sticking around this long. One last thing really quick before you go. I wanted to make you aware of 2 big video projects that I'm planning on completing before the release of the show. First, I hope to do a big live stream with a few guests where I plan to take every single official shot that we've seen in all of the trailers and teasers and promotional images, and then attempt to sequence them into a final, speculated timeline of events of how we think as a community the show will play out. More info coming about that soon. Second, I've spearheaded a major project in collaboration with over 30 other community members and content creators to create an in-depth, chapter-by-chapter summary of The Eye of the World for people who have already read the first book and need a refresher. This has been a major collaboration with many other people, and I can't wait to share it with you all. Look for that video soon before the show airs. And that's it. Huge shout out to my Patreon and YouTube supporters. Please consider supporting me on Patreon or YouTube. Tiers start as low as $1 per month, and your support really is what keeps me going. Until next time, take it sleazy.